So, in this episode, we'll talk about how to structure your Terraform project and how you can basically uh, evolve it and structure it in such a way that you don't need to modify it and move it around with the time. So, the structure that usually happens, what people do is they would structure, like they would have a repo called infra, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, a Git repo where they would store their like infrastructure code. Uh, in that, usually you will have directory called scripts. Uh, this is where you keep your helper scripts, scripts that you use to like shorten your long running command and like stuff like that. And then you would see a repo called Terraform, the directory in the repo called Terraform. And in that, they would structure their project in a folder. So usually this is your root of the repo, and then you have a tf folder, and inside that you structure your project. And the way I've seen it structured, most places is inside tf you would have your environments. Under environments you would have your resource category. Like let's say you have databases, so you'll have a folder called db. You'll have vms, so you'll have a folder called servers. Let's say you have net network resources, right? dns, vpc, subnet. You'll have a folder called network, right? uh, and so on. So this is your like single environment, right? You would repeat the same for your dev. You repeat the same for staging. Repeat the same for prod. So now your structure, folder structure, would look something like this. You would have tf, you would have dev, then inside that you will have a network folder, and inside that you'll have your tf files, your environment files, and stuff like that related to networking, right? And then you would have a folder called rest will be same. You'll have a folder. So this is where you will configure your like rds, and then let's say you have another one called servers. This is where you'll have your vms and stuff like that. So yeah, this structure has a benefit, right? So now you can basically split the state. When you're configuring a remote state, what you can do is you don't have one big state. Right now your state is broken down by environment and then the resource category. uh, so when you're modifying network, you're not touching state that is created by db. You're not touching state that is created by servers. So you can't accidentally modify resources in db category, or can't modify resources in the server category, and vice versa, right? If you're changing database, you will not be modifying network by accident. So you'll come into this folder and run your tf apply. uh, uh, and when you're configuring your remote state, in each folder you'll only import the providers that you need, right? And you'll split your state. So when you define a remote state, you define a bucket, and then there is something called path. So path is where you keep your tf state file. uh, you know tf state file जो होती है. And then if you're following this folder structure, now you have smaller state files, right? Smaller state files means your apply will be faster because it needs to reconcile less resources. The bigger the state file gets, the longer it will take for you to run tf apply, because it will need to do a lot more network calls to fetch the state of remote resources and stuff like that. So now you can set the path for your state file. So if you're storing a state file for example network, for a dev environment, you'll have paths something like state dev uh, network, and then your TF state. This can be anything. You can call it, like TF, then dev, uh, and basically you follow the folder structure for your state path, the same folder structure that you have here in your project. That way you can go into the bucket and see, okay, this state file is for that folder. So you have a remote state in S3 that is structured in the same folder structure, that is, you have your environment, uh, and then you have your category of resources. uh, so let's say you want to look at the remote state for dev databases. So you can go to bucket and look at the, like state slash dev slash db folder. That's the TF state for your dev databases. If you'll go to, like let's say state prod and then db, this is where you'll have your, like prod state. Also, some people, what they do is like they'll have a different bucket for different environments, but still follow this structure inside that bucket. Like even though prod and dev state is in the same bucket or different bucket, you follow the structure that you have locally, so it's easy to navigate for the folks. So yeah, and always use state locking, and tag your resources with something like, managed by Terraform. you know so that way you can go into, like AWS UI, and see, okay, oh, this resource is tagged by managed by Terraform, so I'll not modify it from the UI. So yeah.